Welcome back to Large Man Abroad. Let's have a talk. The tariffs are causing havoc all over the country right now, and speculation is causing the markets to go up and down as we hear about new trade deals that are happening, new trade deals that are falling through, and how our partners are either moving closer or farther away. There is so much uncertainty in the market right now, but there is one thing that is certain, and that's that the cost of all these tariffs are being pushed onto the American people. And the worst part about it is that this administration, this government, and its supporters won't even admit that that's the case, even though they're the ones paying for it. Let's have a look.
Who pays tariffs?
Sorry? Well,
who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
They're trying to deflect and turn it around, but at the same time, they can't even say what is obvious. When asking the question, who pays for these tariffs? We all know who it is. It's us. It's the American people. We're the ones who are going to have to pay. Because the reality is that even with a 150% markup on products from China, these products more than likely are still going to be cheaper than the products produced by American competitors. And the nerve to try to turn the question around like it's a game, like you're going to try to make a joke, just answer the question, right? The people want to know. The people want to know the purpose. The people want to know who's paying, because the American people were told that this was going to be good for them. We'll let them finish.
It's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs. So I'll ask one more time, who pays tariffs?
Sir, the history would show that it is a complicated mix of who pays the tariffs over various times.
So that's exactly the problem. If your answer, and you are a very educated person, you have a very impressive bio, cannot answer the question who pays tariffs because you won't answer that, and you say it's a complicated issue, it's not complicated. Consumers pay Trump's tariff tax. That's the reality.
And it's precisely as he said. It's not a complicated subject. And try to waffle on these questions is just completely inappropriate and disrespectful for the American people who are forced to pay these exorbitant prices that we are starting to see that may escalate in the future, and the shortages that they will cost. You can say all you want that this is for a purpose. You can say all you want that the tariffs are going to be good for Americans. But for how long do Americans actually have to suffer? For how long do Americans actually have to pay the bill? Because the government is still going to reap massive benefits from these tariffs. Understand that the taxes aren't changing. The cost of the tariffs are going to be pushed on to the American people, and sales tax is still going to be applied to those products. So in the end, the government benefits, but they're not the only ones who are benefiting. People can't afford to sustain their lives right now. We're not even talking about luxury goods. We're just talking about your basic necessities, groceries, housing, utilities. People can't afford it. People can't afford to have families. People can't afford to go out. People can't afford anything right now. So how are people supposed to pay for all these things? And the answer is quite simple. Credit card debt. More debt taken on the shoulders of the American people, benefiting credit card companies and banks, and the government, who always gets a piece of the pie. My friends, tariffs are a tax on the people. Tariffs are a new levy against the people. That's all that it is. We can say that these are measures taken against foreign countries who are taking advantage of America, but as we've said before, the cost to make products in these countries is so low that the tariffs that you put on them for the most part really have no effect. You can talk about a 50% tariff on Vietnam, but at the same time, the products that are coming from Vietnam are so cheaply made that it really doesn't matter. They're still going to be far cheaper than any product that's made in America, and you're going to have to pay it. And who's going to benefit once again? The government, the credit card companies, because people are living on such tight margins in the United States right now that to move cost up even 20-30% is going to push most people way beyond what they are able to earn. So how can people compensate with that? The first thing they do is stop paying certain bills that they think they just can't afford. The second thing that they are going to do is start using more credit card debt, which is going to further the credit debt crisis that America has right now. trapping people under high interest payments for the rest of their lives. Because understand that once desperation hits and you start turning to credit cards and you have to pay minimum payments because you can't afford to actually pay off the credit card, because let's say you're a low income earner, or you're elderly, or you're disabled, you're now trapped, permanently paying minimum payments on credit cards with no amortization, no end in sight. It's just meant to keep you in debt forever, chipping away at your life savings until you have nothing. And at the same time, the government gets a portion of those proceeds. How can people not see it? And people are saying, oh, we just have to last a little bit. Isn't going to end anytime soon, because China is not coming to the table. You know, China has markets all over the planet. America is a big consumer base, yes, but it's not the only consumer base. Global trade will go down a little bit, but global trade will exist without the presence of America. So how long will it last? Let's ask.
China says in order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
So no one's rolling back any tariffs, and it doesn't look like they're going to end anytime soon. And is this because we're actively in a trade war with China out of necessity? No, we don't. This is out of pride. This is out of pride and trying to go through some campaign promise, trying to fulfill that for ego. That's all this is. But how long will the American people have to pay for another man's ego? How long do we have to do that? Because the bills are piling up for most Americans, and most Americans have already not been able to pay their bills. And you may say that, well, you're just going to have to go out and get another job. Do you know how difficult it is to get a job right now? I mean, people are trying. All these layoffs that are happening right now are meaning that the job market is being oversaturated with applicants. And it's incredibly difficult for anyone to actually sit down and get a job. I mean, you hear people fresh out of college with no experience looking for jobs for over a year, and they still can't get them. So what's everyone supposed to do? Is everyone supposed to just work at McDonald's? I know that that may be the favorite restaurant of the president, but it's not exactly a job that gives stability. It's not exactly a job that pays the bills. And as long as we're looking at minimum wage federally, that's still what, $7 or something like that? I mean, the economic environment right now is ripe for corruption and for opportunism by corporations and elites who actually control the job market. Because as we saw from the video earlier, Trump has absolutely no interest in supporting small business at this point. His focus is on big business. But big business is already in the route to be automated using AI. So where are these jobs going to come from that people who are leaving white collar jobs, people who are leaving office jobs, people who are getting fired from plants are going to be able to turn to? The fact is, they're not going to be able to turn anywhere, because you're getting rid of jobs faster than you're able to produce them. And it's going to lead to a massive spike in unemployment. That's all this is. And while all this is going on, at the same time, people are still going to be forced to pay more taxes on these products, which is going to benefit the government even more, while at the same time hurting your normal working class American person, because that's what this is. The tariffs, in the end, are an attack on the working class. That's all it is. Because the government doesn't suffer, big business doesn't suffer. The only people who suffer are small business and wage workers. And who is that? The working class. Those who live paycheck to paycheck suffer the most because of this. Because they're the ones who actually have to pay for the tariffs. You want to buy a home? Good luck. Because the cost of products that are coming in from abroad have to go through a tariff now, which means that homes are going to be significantly more expensive to make. You want cheaper food? Good luck, because all the farm machinery now has tariffs on it, and companies like John Deere, I believe, are leaving the country altogether. So what happens when you need to order new farm equipment? Guess what? The farms, they're going to push that cost onto the consumer. You want clothes? You want to make sure that your kids are ready for the school year next year? Well, guess what? The backups and shortages at the ports, where the vast majority of clothes and sneakers come from either Vietnam or China, guess what? They're not going to be showing up. And when they do show up, you may have to end up paying twice as much for those same products. If you know anything about raising a family, it is an incredibly expensive venture to do in this country right now. So to increase the cost on the family is to break America. After the first 100 days of this administration, we have to ask ourselves, are our lives any better at this point? Does the future look any brighter? Are we just in a moment of suffering, approaching a time of greater suffering? because all the markers are pointing towards a terrible recession coming. That's the future. And while this recession's happening and people inevitably lose more jobs, as millions and millions of people continue to lose job month after month, as we've seen 3.5 million layoffs happen in January and February alone, the tariffs still aren't going to be lifted. People are going to pay extra. And again, the government benefits. The finance sector will benefit. Credit card companies will benefit. The banks will benefit. But the American people, as always, will be left paying the bills if they can. Because in the end, that's what comes next. People have an inability to pay bills. What happens then? With the talk of we need more prisons, we need to open up prisons like Alcatraz. Is that the solution? Is the solution to criminalize those who can't pay their bills? Those who would default on predatory lending? Those who would default on payments to predatory lending when the government becomes the greatest predatory lender of them all? It's bad enough that they saddle Americans with tons of debt just to go get a higher education, which for the most part doesn't even guarantee a good job anymore. And when those students can't get those jobs because no one's hiring, they're faced to default on those student loans. And when they don't pay those student loans, guess what happens? The government just takes it out of your paycheck when you inevitably do get your job. They garnish your wages. This entire system is just set up to suck the American people dry. That's really all that it is. And the tariffs, if we're being completely honest, are just a get-rich-quick scheme by a snake oil salesman put in place on the American people during a time of economic crisis. And that's all it is. But people will still support it because the pain isn't here enough yet. People need to suffer more. How much can people suffer before they say enough is enough? Honestly, Americans haven't been there since the Great Depression, so we're about to find out. Because honestly, that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading. We're entering a zone where we're diving into a new recession, and stagflation is about to hit. So do what you can. Honestly, do what you can to save up as much money as you can or stock up on supplies. Find alternative assets to invest in. Gold and silver are always big ones. If you're going to be a little more apocalyptic, bullets, beans, and alcohol are always great options. But we're definitely entering the unknown. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. And everything's going to happen just as Trump says, just as his supporters say. That we're just going to suffer for a little bit and then we're going to enter a new golden age. But the amount of nastiness that's coming out of it, right? The amount of resentment that's coming out of it, it isn't easily something that's pushed off. Because again, as with the protracted engagement that we're seeing with tariffs, essentially all of this is coming from one man's pride. So on a national scale, dealing with that kind of blowback and expecting people to override their natural sense of pride to see or admit any kind of wrong on their side is a lot to ask for, especially in a country that has no concept of accountability. No concept at all. This is a nation that's worked very hard to miss accountability, to not have to deal with any of that. And, the amount of propaganda and double talk and just open-faced lies that we've seen through really our entire lives, just watching politics in America. And I guess you can say politics worldwide, really just tell us that it's just, none of it's good for us. And, that's why I always say, at this point, hey, we just need a complete reset on this entire thing. Right, the people got to take control of this country again, because the government sure as hell isn't. They're just robbing us blind, and it's typical. It's typical in the downfall of any civilization that the richest and most wealthiest will rob the people blind before they decide to leave. And if you want to get more conspiratorial, I mean, every celebrity essentially has a fallout bunker in a cave in Hawaii at some point at this point. So, I mean, what are we really expecting? But it's a bizarre world. It's a bizarre time, and the American people are paying. So anyway, everyone, thank you for stopping by again. Thank you for the support. As always, this channel runs on the support of people like you, so we can keep doing this, keep speaking up for the working man, the basic normal person in America who is completely forgotten and completely seems to be thrown into the wood chipper by mainstream media, by our politicians, by our corporations, by our banks, by our lenders, by the financial sector, by everybody at this point. No one cares about the working class person in America now, and they're just trying to take everything from us. So again, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the support. Hope you guys have an outstanding week. Keep your heads up, lead with empathy, look out for each other, and by God, have a good one. Take care.